Hey everyone, Huggy here, and today I'll be talking about my process for making some hair. So this time I won't be going through hair cards as in some of my previous videos, and the thing I'll be doing today is actually going through how I approach making some stylized hair. So going all through modeling a basic hair shape, turning that into a brush in ZBrush, and then actually shaping it to our character's head. So yeah, let's make some hair. Okay, so here's the model I'll be giving some hair for. As some of you might have seen, I've been actually working for her like a few months ago, if you've been following like my Twitter or something, and this is a model like technically never finished. So she used to have hair which I honestly didn't like that much, so now I'll be giving her like a new hairstyle, and then I'll actually like use this as the starting point for me to actually finish this model and making it work for whatever else I'm gonna do. So the first thing I'm gonna do now, let me just hide this collection here and I'll create another one. I'll call it a hair OBJ, as this is gonna be the base or like our hair object. So now that we have our collection set up, I'm going to press Shift A so we could spawn a cube. So I'm going here to mesh and cube. So now we have like a nice cube over here. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna scale it up, and I'm gonna scale it up a little bit on the y-axis like this, so I can make it like fairly long. But now I'm also gonna scale it down on Z just a tiny bit, something like that, so we could actually have some nice shape to work with. So the kind of shape I want to have, it's something that could have like a nice arch here at the top, and then a taper down here at the bottom. And that is gonna be the base for all of our hair. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'll press Ctrl and R so I could create an edge ring here, and right click so it stays on the middle. I'll select the higher loops here, I'll shift them a little bit higher like this. Maybe let me go back to solid view, and then I'll press Alt Z so I could see through everything and select these vertices over here. I'll scale it down a little bit here on X, I'll move them a little higher, and now I can create another edge ring here, which also scale it up on X. So you can see we're already starting to create that little arc shape that I was talking about, something like that. And I'll select these lower guys here, I'll shift them up a little bit, I'll scale them more on X. So now that we have our base shape here, I'll be creating some UVs. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'll select this edge down here at the bottom, right in the middle, and I'll be selecting these two supporting edges down here on each side as well, like this. So like this. So now I can right click, mark scene, and these are gonna be like the edges of our UV map. So now I can press A to select everything, U to unwrap, and then unwrap. So now we can go here into our UV editing workspace here, and you can see our object already has some fairly nice UVs, but we can actually make those nicer. So what I'm gonna do here is actually make those a little more square, and we can't really automate that because of the way that these edges here loop around each other. So the thing I'm gonna do here is I'll select this edge loop down here. As you can see, this one that's kind of making an arc here, so I'll be selecting this, and now I'll press S, Y, and 0. So this actually flattens everything. And now I'll be doing the same thing down here at the bottom. So I'll select everything and then SY0. But now you can see that these parts, they are kind of left out. So now is the part that we actually get to fix them. So I'm going back to layout and I'll be separating these parts. So I'll select this edge loop here, this edge loop here, and I'll create the seams, just like that. And now with face selection, I'll select those faces here. and now I can unwrap them again. So now when I go to the UV editor, you can see that they're already looking much nicer, so now I can actually take them and like make them more proper. So when I select everything, you can see I have this piece here, and then we have the two pieces here. And now to actually check the direction of our UVs, I'm going here into our shading workspace and I'll create a new material for it. So what I'll be doing now is that I'll create a gradient so I could actually check the direction of everything that I'm doing here. So I'm going to Shift A and I'll search for gradient texture. Now I'll plug that into color, and you can already see it's already doing some things, but it's not exactly what I want. So now I'll create a color ramp, so I'll Shift A and look for ramp. And that's the one, and I'll be placing it in between gradient and our BSDF. And now if you have Node Wrangler enabled, you can just click gradient and press Ctrl T. So it would create those two nodes for you, but if you don't, these are the nodes that you're gonna need. So texture coordinate, mapping, and then plug it into gradient texture. So the reason we're doing this is because we need this texture to follow our UV space. So I'm gonna take the UV node from this and plug it into the vector of our mapping node. So now we actually have a gradient that's following the UVs of our object. So now we have a proper gradient that's following the UVs of our object. And now I'm actually gonna change the interpolation from linear to ease, and I'll make them a little more colorful. So something like going from blue to red, so we could actually like see what we're doing. And now I can go back to UV editing. And now we can better visualize our material, so let me place these guys down here for a bit. I'll rotate this in 90 degrees, so R90, and now I'll actually make it fit the grid a little better, so I'm going into UV and pack islands. So this is just gonna make it like stick to the edges here very nicely. Now I'll be taking this part here, and I'll actually stretch it all the way to the end. And now I can pack islands again just in case. And there we go, we have a nice gradient that's going like from one side to the other. I'll be using those to actually place the ends of our object. So this part I can rotate here since it goes here. I'll scale it down on X a little bit, and then I'll scale it up on Y somewhere. Oh, this is actually on the other side, sorry. So it should be like this, yeah. This is very distorted, but once we actually put on some hair textures over here, it's gonna make sense. And I'll be doing the same thing to the other side. So I'll be putting it here, and I'll scale it so it fits. I'll actually make it even flatter, something like that. Like so. So now we can go back to our layout, and now I'll right click and shade smooth, so we could see a little better what we're doing. Now I'm going back to edit mode, and now we're gonna start to actually shape this a little better. So now I can start with creating another loop here around the middle, like so. And now I'll select these edges here at the end and actually scale them down a little bit so I could form some nice taper. So scale down on X first, and then I'll take these vertices here at the top and bring them down a little bit. Scale them down on Z just a tiny bit, because I don't really want to like change how it looks on the bottom, only at the top. Let me do it a little bit more. And that'll do. I don't really want to do it too much, so this should be good for now. So now I can actually select this edge loop over here, and I'll go into our bevel tool to make it like a little smoother. And now drag it a little more over here. And now I'll use a scroll wheel to actually add some rings to it. And I'll add 4 for now. So now if you see, like over here, we actually got 7 vertices here. And I usually really enjoy working with even numbers, so I'll actually shift these a little bit more towards here and create another one, like so. So now we have our first basic piece with 8 segments. So I'll just call this hair underscore 8. And this is gonna be nice for us to keep track on the different hair pieces we'll be doing. So now I can shift D to duplicate this piece. So now I'll be creating some other pieces where I'll just be adding more segments to it. So I'll be creating another edge ring here at the end, another one here, and I'll pretty much just add some more pieces here, and being careful about keeping our numbers even. So now you can see this piece has 14 verts, so I'll add 2 more here. So this creates 16. So now I can name this hair underscore 16. So now I can duplicate this again, and I'll make this our hair 24. Doing the same thing again, just creating some more subdivisions here. And I'll also be shifting our edge loops here a little bit more so everything becomes much more even. Now I'll make another one for 32. So same thing, just adding subdivisions here and actually shifting everything in place. So now that we have our 32, we could also go to 64, which for this particular case, I don't think I will. So if you look here, we have all of our separate hair pieces, but I'm actually going to keep them all in the same place. But there's one thing that I will do right now is that I'll select all of them. I'll shift here into edit mode. It is very important to do that in edit mode and not in object mode, so I'll be moving them a little closer to our origin point here. Doesn't have to be 100% on top of it, but it should be closer. And this is gonna make our brush work a little better when we're inside a ZBrush and actually putting things to work. Place this over here, and that seems good enough. Oh, actually another thing I forgot, I'll rotate this 90 degrees and move it here, so our hair it's actually facing upwards. Like this will be very important later. And now we got it ready to go. So now I'll select all of the pieces again, and I'll go into File, Export, FBX. I'll make sure to export only selected objects and mesh. So now we can go into ZBrush. I'll be loading in our default project. So now that we have our default sphere here, I'm going there on the right in Tool, and I'll import our FBX. So you can see here we have everything here, and this is pretty much good to go already. So now I'm going here into our brush panel. I'm going down here to create and insert multi-mesh. So if you only had like one object, it would have been insert mesh, but since we have multiple subtools over here, we gotta make an insert multi-mesh. So I'll be clicking this guy here, and you can see that it just created an insert mesh brush. So now I'm gonna append a sphere 3D here so we could actually test things out. And you can see that every time we drag our object, it's gonna create like our neat little hair strand. And it works with all of the subdivisions that we just made. And now the thing you can do now is that you click on our brush here. I'm going all the way to the bottom here and I'll press Save As. So now you can actually give your brush a name and actually save it in your ZBrush folder so you could use it later. And now that we got everything set up for our hairbrush, I'll be talking a little bit about what our process for making hair here is gonna be. So let me append another circle and hide everything here. Cool. And now the technique that we'll be doing here is that I'll be taking our hairbrush and I'll create one strand at a time. So if I place our guy over here, I can go here into our move gizmo and actually place it in a bit more of a finer way here. So the next thing we do now is that now that we have our transpose gizmo over here, we can click on that gear icon here. So we could actually use this little tool here called Bend Curve. So you can see here that it created like 2 dots at each point of our brush. And you can see it actually shapes our hair strand over here. And this is gonna be the main tool that we'll be using throughout our hair making. And all of those notches here, they all do like something different. So this blue here, it changes the axes that you're editing. So this one is already going in the right direction, but just in case it's not, you can tweak it using this guy here. The second one's for smoothness. It basically changes like how smooth of a distortion that our bend curve is gonna have. And this last one, it's one that we'll be using a lot, and that's curve resolution. So you see here we have 2 points, one at the start and the other in the end. We have 2 points here, one in the root and the other in the tip. And the more that we push this notch here, the more points we actually get. So the thing I like to do, it's usually to just start with 3, so I can actually like make some bending over here and then start like gradually increasing the resolution so I could do some finer edits. And now let's see these other ones here. So you can see that every time that you click on a point, you also have a few extra notches here. So this big orange one is for twist, so it twists your object in the direction that you push it. Really useful stuff. This smaller one is for scale, so it makes everything smaller, larger, whatever size you want. And this other guy over here is for squeeze, which is another one that we'll be using a lot. So what it does is that it actually flattens our curve over here. So it's gonna be very useful to do some like tapering at the ends. And with these tools, you can make like pretty much any shape you want with our hair. Something I like to do is to like flatten here, close to the root, then increase our curve resolution. Make it a little chunkier over here, twist it a bit, actually give some more taper here in the end, and then actually fine-tune everything. So you can see this tool, it's actually really powerful, and this is gonna be the backbone of everything that we're doing here. And now that we actually know the techniques that we're gonna be using, I'll be stepping back a little bit to actually discuss the hairstyle that we're making. And so here we have the original concept that I have drawn for this particular character. So I've been sketching a lot of those lately, and those are pretty much like outfit ideas. So this is the original concept that I've drawn. Like, I usually really like to just sketch little random like outfit ideas like that, and this is the one that I came up for this particular model. You can see that this one had like long black hair, but honestly I don't think I like this idea for this particular outfit anymore. So I've been looking around for a couple hairstyles that I think would fit. I saw that this short and straight hair like would really fit the character really well, so this is what I'll be going for. And one thing that I find very important and insanely useful is to actually find 360 pictures of the hair that we're gonna make. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be like the same person or anything, but if it is like roughly the same hairstyle, it just helps out a lot. So the thing I'm gonna do here is to actually find where the main clumps of our hair are gonna be. So you can see here on the front view, I can separate those into like the bangs, the top of the hair, the side of the hair, and then the back. So now I'll pretty much be sketching down like what some of those zones are gonna be, so I can actually reference her later. So this here is gonna be one clump, this here will be another smaller one, and then I'll use that to actually find where the main clumps of my hair are gonna be, because especially for stylized hair, it is very important that your shape can read really well. So it is really good to actually start like blocking out what your main shapes are gonna be. And you can see that this particular style is also very layered, so it is also very important to identify where those layers are. And like here at the sides, you can also see this clump that goes all the way down, this other one that makes this nice taper over here, this part that goes behind the ear. The bangs here aren't exactly the same, so I won't be looking to it so much, because my main base is still gonna be this one on the front view, but it's very handy to actually identify and have an idea of what you're gonna do. Doing this is also very useful for making hair cards as well, but especially useful when we're doing stylized. And here at the back, we can see that there's this very large one, this part. And with this, we can also see like what kinds of major shapes we can do, because you can see like how this part has like this little curve down here that I find very appealing. So this is also something that we could work within our model, and how it all moves and curves outside like that. It's such a nice shape. And going back here into the front view, we also see that the root of the hairs also start like right here in the middle, and some people it would be like right at the sides or somewhere like that, but it is also really good to like properly know where things start and where things end. So now that we're actually like looking into like what kind of hair we're doing, now we can actually get into ZBrush and start doing it. Okay, so now I'm back to ZBrush. You can see I already have my model here, like just the model itself and nothing fancy about it. So now we're going to actually put our new brush to use. So the first thing to keep in mind is that I'm going here to subtool, and I'm going to append a new mesh, because ZBrush doesn't really like insert brushes in meshes that already have subdivision in. So the thing I'll do is I'll click append, I'll append a sphere, and you can see here that we got our sphere. It's a pretty big one, so I'll be scaling it down a little bit. I'll place it roughly in the head. Like, this is not a scalp or anything, it's just a mesh, so we'd have a starting point, so this should be fine. And now that we have our sphere loosely placed here in the head, I'll be going to the brush that we just created, and in this case I already have it here on my shortcuts, and you can see this has a few more pieces. Like, this is the brush I personally use. It's pretty much the same thing. It's pretty much the same thing, but it's pretty much the same thing, but it's easier for me to use since it's already there. and I'll have it linked in the description just in case you want to get it as well. So I'll be starting here with a 12 segment version, and usually when I'm making hair I like to start in the back, so going from the lower layers up to the top. So I'll just start placing our hairs here. So I'll be going here to bend curve, and I'll be loosely placing our hair here. I got the root and the tip, and now I can start increasing the subdivisions. Then I'll have a nice taper here at the end. Pretty simple stuff so far. And now you can also use like the move brush to make some smaller tweaks to it. And this is the main reason why I really enjoy making hair like this in ZBrush specifically, because I can have this kind of hybrid method like very seamlessly. And now actually paying attention to the overall flow of our hair. So pretty simple stuff really. So another cool thing we can do now is to actually have this particular strand of hair selected, and I'm going here to our transpose tool again, so with the move gizmo or any of them you'd want really, and you can alt and click these two icons here, so you actually reset the position of your gizmo. And the thing I'm gonna do now is I'll take like any of those move gizmos here and I'll hold Control. They'll nudge it a little bit so we make a duplicate of our selection. Now that we have this, we can go all the way down here to deformation and mirror. You can see I already have a shortcut for this here in my interface, but just in case you don't, this is the path to where I'll be clicking a few times here. And you see we made a mirror of our hair strand here, so now I'll also be taking our move brush and I'll be breaking symmetry just a little bit, like so. This is looking quite nice already, but you know, there's still a lot to do. So going back to bend curve, and let's make some more hairs here. Now I'll also be using the standard brush a little bit here to make our shape a little fuller. And now there's another very cool thing that we can do right now, and is to actually add some texture to this so we could preview some things a little better. So now I'll be going down here to geometry, and I'm moving here to dynamic subdiv, and I'll press dynamic. So this isn't like actually subdividing the model, but like making it more of a preview of how the next subdivisions are gonna look like, so everything feels a little smoother and really good for doing previews. And now we can go down here to surface, and let's add some noise. Now we have the little noisemaker window here. I'll press frame so I could see things a little better, and this is the main reason why we give UVs to this hair. So I'll be clicking here in UV, and I'm going here to noise plug. So now you can see we have a couple different noises that we can actually use. And the one I'll be using for this is Perlin noise. So let me click it here. Now I'll do an OK for now. And I'll bring mix with basic noise, I'll make it 0. So we don't have any generic noise anymore, but only the noise that we'll be making. And I'll also make the color black so we could actually see things a bit better. Now I'm going back here to edit, so we could actually start tweaking our noise plug. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'll be changing the scale values here, and I'll be scaling it up a little bit, something like this. And then I'll be reducing the X scale here, so they become a bit more fiber-like. And now it's more of a matter of tweaking our settings here. And of course, depending on the direction of your UVs, you might be tweaking the Y scale. But for mine, it's an X, and this should be good. Now I'll actually bring color blend to 0 because I don't want this affecting color, and the strength seems fine. So now I can just press OK. And now it feels a little bit more like hair. And of course we could be using other materials, like something like basic material and actually have like some color to it. Like I'll be doing like a dark brown for mine, but for editing purposes make it like a lighter brown color. Something like this should be fine. And I'll go back to geometry and disabling dynamic subdiv for now, because this ends up like changing the shape a little bit, and I still want it to be on subdivision 0 so I could have a bit more control. So now I can start actually making more hair. So now I'll be moving on here to the side, so I could actually make the hair like under the ears. And for this I'll be making it symmetrically, so press X. And everything we do here, it's gonna affect both sides. I'll be also breaking symmetry just a little bit on this part, so it doesn't have to be the exact same. Okay, now I'll be moving on for the front side of the hair, so then we could actually finish things up here at the top. And I'll be adding a little bit of volume here, just using the move tool and actually spreading things out a bit more. And now I'll be going for the top. So for these ones I'll be using the 24 segment version, so we need a little bit more resolution. Now I'll turn on dynamic once again, so we could check some things and do a couple tweaks. Like you can see here how it is a little loose. And there's also one thing that I forgot to do here, and it's actually going here into geometry, crease, and I'll just press crease once. And this is gonna be like creasing the ends here, so things won't look too weird here on dynamic. And now I can actually start making a couple adjustments here. And this will be the base of her hair. Another thing we can do now is I'll activate our solo view here, because now we'll be deleting our circle here in the middle. So as you can see, when we activate polyframe, you can see that the ball here, it's actually its own polygroup. So I can go here into Z modeler, I'll right click on the face here, I'll go into delete and polygroup all. So now when I click a face, it's gonna delete the entire poly group. So now we only have our hair left and not the ball that we had in. So now I'll be disabling our dynamic subdivision now because there are still a few hair strands that I want to put in here. So I'll go back to my tool and I'll use the lowest one that I have, which here is 6 segments, and I'll be making like a couple of hair strays here at the top. So it could actually give some like depth and texture to our hair. And that'll be it for now, so I feel like this hair's pretty good to go, so I'll be exporting this as an OBJ and bringing it back to Blender. So I'll go here into Tool and Export. Okay, so back to Blender. You can see here I just imported our hair mesh and it still has the sphere name, so I'll name this hair underscore new. And now let's be adding some texture to this. As you see, it's not looking that great, and I'll also be subdividing it. So let me go here to subdivision surface, and there we go. I can also see a few issues over here, and I'll be fixing them once we actually get some textures working out. So I'll be dragging a window here to the side. Of course, you can also use the shading workspace, but I usually don't. And I'm not gonna be using this default material either, so I'll delete that. And I'll create a new one that I'll name M underscore hair. And now we'll be doing like something that is very similar to what we did back in ZBrush. So we'll be taking like a noise texture and actually stretch it over to our hair. Now I'll press Shift A and I'll be making a noise texture like so. And of course, if you have a node wrangler enabled, you can Control Shift and click, so we can actually preview what this noise actually looks like. And I'll be bringing the roughness all the way down to 0, so we don't have this weird noise that it makes. We want something that looks much cleaner. And I'll also press Ctrl T, so it creates our texture coordinate and mapping nodes. But I'll also be dragging UV into vector, because we don't want it being generated, we want it following our UV map. So you can see it's already starting to look like something, but it's not proper just yet. So first thing I'll do is I'll bring the scale down a little bit, because I want it to feel... No, actually I'll be bringing it up, because I want some like texture variation like this. Yeah, this seems good for now. And I'll be bringing the scale on X up a couple values, so... And of course, depending on the direction of your UVs, it could either be X or on the Y axis, so... It depends a lot on the UV direction of your model. This seems good enough for now. There's a bald spot here that we'll be fixing later, and yeah. Next thing I'll do now is create a color ramp, so I'll type in ramp, and I'll be plugging it over here, like right after our noise texture, because I want to define those colors a bit more, so I'll be changing the interpolation to ease, and I'll be bringing black like a little closer. Something like this, so our strands are a little more well defined. And now I'll be creating another node, so I'll be making a bump node, so this becomes a bump map. So what this does is that it will take all of this noise data that we just created, and it's gonna make it actually look like it's 3D. It's not actually 3D, but it will have like a really nice effect. So I'll be plugging our ramp into height, and normal into our BSDF normal. And now I can plug our BSDF back to surface so we could see what we're doing. And you can see we actually have some depth detail over here. However, it's Still not looking great, like I think the effect is way too strong, so I'll be bringing the strength down a little bit. Something like this. And actually I think I'm gonna decrease the scale a little more, something like this. Cool. And now another thing we can do is to actually create a gradient texture. So I'll type here gradient. Let me Control Shift and click so we could actually see what we're doing. And I'll press Control T so it creates our mapping node. So let's plug UV into vector. And you can see that we already have a gradient working here, but the direction is all wrong, because the UV direction from this particular mesh isn't really the same as the model that we've done before. So, okay, so I'll be rotating this 90 degrees on the X and Y axis. So you can see that this is already working so much better, like so. But you can see that the actual gradient is not exactly the same length everywhere, and this is something that we should be fixing now. So I'll be selecting our hair and I'll bring it to UV editing. So now that we have it here, I'll select everything, so I'll press A, and now you can see like the actual UVs of my hair. So the thing I'm gonna do now is that I'll be selecting those parts here on top, and then I'll press Ctrl L to select linked. And now I can take these parts down here at the bottom, and I'll be using proportional editing. So now I could make the gradient a little more noticeable. And now I'll be doing the same thing to some of the other hair strands that look a little weird. And there we go, we got our gradient going here. So now I'm actually taking the data from this gradient that we have here, and I'll be making a mix node. So I'll type in mix and get a mix color. And the color from our gradient texture will become the factor of our mix. So if we look at it here, when I change color A, it becomes the color of our root. And when I change color B, it becomes the color of our tip. So now I'll actually be making it like a dark brown, like so. And I'll be creating another mix color, so I'll type in mix, and I'll be taking the result from this mix, and that'll become color A from our second mix. And then the factor of this mix will become our previous color ramp, so I'll plug this here. So now you can see we have those nice hair streaks here. And now I'll be setting the blending mode to something like darken. And I'll make this a slightly darker color. Something like this. And now I can take the result from this mix and place it as base color. And now you can see our hair is already looking so much better. And now there's one more thing that I'll do, and it's actually tweak the shader itself. So usually for like realistic hair cards, I have roughness fairly low, something like a 0.3, and then I'd be adding some transmission to it, sometimes subsurface. It depends a lot on what I'm doing. But you can see here, I honestly don't think it works that well for this kind of hair, so I'll be bringing the roughness to something like 0.6-ish, so we can have some shine, but it's not like overwhelming or anything. And I'll make it a little metallic, like so. And this is our hair shader, so. And I'll also be adding a little bit of sheen, so let me get here, like very slightly, make the roughness a little lower. I'll make it like a more bluish kind of tint, like so. So you can see the hair has some like very nice kinds of sheen here. Of course, you can also like explore and see whatever works best for you. Oh, actually, experimenting here, I think this kind of lighter hair color fits her so much better. It's something I can absolutely explore more of. Yeah, I quite like this. And there we go, so now it's time to fix some of those more janky spots over here, so let me close this window here to the side so I can have a fuller view. Now I'll be going into edit mode and actually take some of those parts and like fix them. So for this I'll be using proportional editing, and I'll apply the connected only button here. So any change that I make, it would only be made to like the active hair strand that I'm editing, so it doesn't like break anything. Now let me go to the other side. And then the bald spots here, which I'll disable connected only. And there you go. Another thing I can do here, for example, is for some extra bit of polish, is to select some of those hair strands here. Maybe not all of them, but definitely most of them. Let me take some of the lower ones here too. I'll press Ctrl L to select linked, and then I'll press Shift D so I could duplicate it. And I'll right click so it stays in place, and I'll press P to separate. I'll be joining those later on, but it's nice to have them separated right now. Now going back to edit mode, I'll select everything, and I'll go here to vertex, smooth vertices, and I'll run some smoothing here so they also like lose a little bit of volume, and this is pretty much what we'd want here. Let me scale it up a bit more so it separates itself. And you can see here that they can be used to create some nice separation. So now I'll be going here to our sculpt mode, and with the move brush I'll actually be just like moving them around. Now also press Alt A so I could mask it by topology. So what this means is that I can only take one of those pieces at a time, which will also be very handy. And now I'll also be deleting some of those. So I'll be taking these. Yeah, no, delete them. And taking those parts over here and actually lowering them so you wouldn't see it. Like so. And now I'll be selecting everything that we've done here, and I'll be joining them in. So now we have our hair mesh. Let me put it here into render view so we can have some nice lighting, and there we go, this is our model. So thank you so much for everyone that has watched this video so far. It really means a lot to me, and please let me know if it's helped you out, or if you have any suggestions of videos I could make later. They all mean the world to me to read, really amazing to be here doing all that. And I do plan on having this model for sale once I get it done. Like, it is technically not finished. Not the biggest fan of the face so far, so I'll be doing a lot of adjustments to it. Also be giving it like a proper rig and some shape keys for like body morphing and such, so I'll be having a link down in the description once I have everything set up. And of course you can have the hairbrush I use in this video also in the description down in my Gumroad. So if you like this video, please leave it a like, comment what you think, subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, all of the stuff that you probably already hear from everyone, but I don't know, I keep hearing that it is good to like remind people to do so there I am. But yeah, I think I already said enough. I'm already planning to doing like a rigging video for this hairstyle later on, so it shouldn't take too long. But yeah, this is Huggy signing out. Love you all. Take care everyone.